up, you guys? It's 2Bricks, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Microfleet series ships that I've created for Star Wars: The Force Awakens, that being, of course, Episode 7 of the Skywalker Saga, as it has now become known. So today we're going to be taking a look at a range of small ships. There really wasn't a ton of medium-sized craft in The Force Awakens. It went from kind of smallish to ginormous, you know, with the Resurgent class Star Destroyers and Starkiller Base and all of those things that obviously are out of the scope of what I can make out of Lego bricks. So here we go with the selection that we have today. We just have the Resistance craft over here, and then we have the Millennium Falcon, which is the same exact design but with a square dish, and that's really a joke inclusion that does not count as a new ship. And then we have the Quad Jumper down here from Jakku, and then all of the First Order craft back here. So we're going to take a look at each one of these today. For those of you guys that are new to the channel, this is a series where I'm attempting to build essentially every Star Wars ship that I can possibly think of, or that I possibly am able to make, all to the same scale in Lego, so that they kind of stack up alongside of each other really nicely, and you guys can get a look at what they all look like next to each other. So without further ado, let's take a look. So we'll get this one out of the way first. It's the Millennium Falcon, but with a rectangular dish. If you guys are curious to see more about this design, it has not changed at all, except for the fact that I've switched out the dish piece, and I have a whole video going over just this ship, and you guys can see all the details that you want to know about it over there. So that's the Millennium Falcon. And then sticking with ships that we find in Unkar Plutt's possession on Jakku, we have the Quad Jumper. And the Quad Jumper is a really cool little kind of it almost is like a single-person ship. I think there's, you know, accommodations for 3 or 4 people in here, but it's way smaller than I thought it was, because in the movie we see it from a really low angle from far away, and it looks kind of bigger than it is, but it's actually a pretty small ship. And it's called a Quad Jumper because it has these, you know, quad engines that I guess jump it really fast into hyperspace. I don't know, but it was a really, really fun design. Figuring out how to get the engine assemblies to angle in a little bit like this was the trickiest part of the whole thing. And that is simply done by attaching this whole thing with 2 lightsaber hilt pieces onto a clip, and then just angling those in, and then just attaching these pieces on the back to just kind of complete out those engine assemblies. So yeah, we only see this for but the briefest of moments on screen before it gets blown up, obliterated by the First Order. So there is the Quad Jumper. Interestingly though, we did get a full Lego set out of this one, and it was a really, really nice set. And next up we have the 2 X-Wings, the T-75 models with the single large engine at the front. These are pretty much the same design as the T-65, the only main difference being, like I said, those the engine design and just the way that those are attached by using these headlight bricks to attach the wings to give you the space to have a stud at the front here for the engines, and here I'm just using the jumper piece, and it's a much narrower design overall. But yeah, there's 2 that are seen in The Force Awakens. I mean, well, there's a bunch, but this is kind of the standard Black Squadron regular one that we see at the beginning of the film, gets destroyed, and then again the rest of Poe's squad seems to have those. And then this is his Black Leader version, which leads the attack on Starkiller Base, and which gets blown up in The Last Jedi, sadly. But yeah, so these are the 2 X-Wings. I think this is such a versatile design with the way that I have the clip set up and everything, that there's a lot of different color possibilities that can exist. Not an indefinite amount, because, you know, things like these relatively new bar pieces are, you know, they're fairly limited in what colors are available right now. But I think there's a good amount of different combinations that can be achieved using this design. So I like it, and yeah, just giving you a look at the back here with the different takes on the back with the flat stud here and just the regular plate on the back for that one. For the engine outlets at the back here, I'm just using these clip pieces to represent, you know, the 2 on either side, because it is still 2 engines. It just the 2 halves come together at the front to look like 1 engine. So that's that. But yeah, those are the X-Wings. Nothing much more to say about them really. They're not that complicated. So we'll just move on to the next one. And keeping with the Resistance craft, here we have General Leia's personal transport, which is, you know, the B-Wing Mark II cockpit attached to an interesting kind of center section here that's I think, an aftermarket just crew capsule. It's a really fun little design, again, because I love the fact that they're using the concept of, what used to be called uglies in Star Wars, where you're basically cobbling together a new ship from pieces of an old ship. That's very Resistance to me, and I like that a lot. This whole front section would represent the ramp that extends down that General Leia comes out of, and I love the way that they have it set up in the movie. When you first see this ship and Leia comes down, Han is standing over here, and there's just this giant gun right in the foreground of the shot, like right there, pointing right at Han's face. So it definitely shows that there's been some hostility between them in the past, and that it's not an entirely happy reunion. So I like that a whole bunch. There was actually a very similar design to this in the recent Advent calendar, which I was happy to see. I didn't think that this would ever get any kind of miniature representation. My one is a little bit bulkier, and it kind of, I think it captures the proportions just a little bit more accurately, but I thought that it was a pretty valiant attempt in the one that we got for the Advent calendar. Yeah, not much to say about this one, just very, very simple with some brackets holding the whole thing together, and unfortunately this module is not detachable. This is part of the kind of integrated into the ship. It would have been cool if I could separate that out, but for The Last Jedi there will be a separate crew module, because this is, a capsule here, which is what they take to Canto Bight, so I will be showing you guys that one on its own. Obviously you can kind of tell it's going to be pretty simple, but there you go. Yeah, again, not much more to say about this one. Very, very simple, and but effective, I think. Next up, we have the First Order Troop Transporter, which is a really interesting kind of design that's reminiscent of a real World War II craft, the kind of landing craft that would run right up to the beach and drop troops off. It had definitely evoked that for me the first time I saw it anyway. This section up here is where the pilot would sit, and it's supposed to be, covered up on the top, obviously, but I just have, I wanted to get that kind of slit at the front to represent that window that is in there, and I didn't want to cover that up with a stud or something that would hide that, but you could just imagine that it's sealed up. And then this would be where the ramp would extend down, obviously, and all the troops come running out. I thought that was a really effective opening scene in The Force Awakens, with all the troops just spilling out into the village, and laser fire all of a sudden breaking out everywhere. I thought it was pretty cool. I have this one stud on here to represent, there's like a big old floodlight on the front to kind of blind the enemy and cover the troops. So I have that represented there with just that one stud. And then over here, this stud would be a hatch that opens up where a trooper can come out, and there's actually kind of a mounted gun on this side that is for ground cover defense, again, to try to give some cover to the troops as they spill out of the front of this thing. There's a really interesting kind of double triangular sort of configuration to the engines, which obviously at this scale I couldn't really capture, but I just wanted to have the 3-stud configuration to kind of just to nod my cap to that, and I think it's a cool, interesting look. So yeah, I wanted to try to capture whatever I could of that. And then these little cheese wedges at the side represent these control flap kind of wing things that come off of the side. There's kind of a whole bunch of them, just sort of all, they all just kind of steer the ship, I guess, in the direction that it needs to go. But I like that this gave the First Order an impression of very kind of rough and ready, not too concerned about, looks or flashiness. It's the most basic, like it's a box to get your troops where they need to go. And I thought that was a really cool statement about the First Order as one of the first things that we see about them. So yeah, that's that, the First Order Troop Transport. Again, super basic, not much to talk about, but there it is. Next up, we have the First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. And this is a pretty familiar looking craft if you've seen the original Star Wars and you know what a TIE Fighter looks like. But I like that they put a little bit of a twist on it by having this kind of antenna slash gun emplacement up here. I don't think we ever actually found out officially what it's supposed to be, or we probably did, but it's, it gives it a little bit of a different asymmetrical profile, which I like. And then they have the red on the side here, which again is unique to the First Order and kind of breaks that up. Plus, on the front and back, there are cockpits, because this is a two-man craft, unlike the old TIE Fighter designs. And of course, the colors are inverted, where instead of predominantly gray with black wings, we have gray wings with black accents. So yeah, I think this is a nice addition. You could, technically, you could swivel this gun down if it is a gun and use it in that way. It does move in the actual movie. I'm not sure if that's something that's, I'm not sure if that's something that is supposed to be like they're using it for communication, so it kind of gets into a forward kind of, position to transmit if it is an antenna, or if it's supposed to actually be a gun. It's just kind of getting ready to fire. Who knows? But I wanted to keep that in there, and I think that's a kind of an important part of the design. So I think that plate with the bar sticking out of it works really well for that. And then I like that you can see the light coming through due to that double cockpit design. You can actually see the red in the middle there, and it gives it a really nice look, I think. So yeah, there is the First Order Special Forces tie. There's actually, the second variant of this is just the regular First Order tie, where the only difference would be this red stud right here would be black. That's literally the only difference, so I decided not to bother with creating that. So there you go. But you can imagine what that would look like. So there that is. And finally, we have the gigantic, bat-like, vampiric shuttle belonging to Kylo Ren. And fans of this series have known about this ship since the very beginning because it's in the intro. This is what I chose to represent the sequel trilogy because I think it's the most iconic ship that we have gotten from the sequel trilogy. And it's just got this giant, imposing presence to it. And, the wings obviously can open up like this. For a long time, mine was the superior design to Legos because their one didn't have folding wings. But now they have rectified that in their most recent set, which was excellent, by the way. They have the folding wing ability, although I'm not sure it comes out to about this degree, but I'm not sure that that's far enough. I think in the movie it comes out to almost here, or maybe even further in certain shots. Yeah, so figuring out the way to display this front kind of interesting kind of fanged design with the red coming down here was probably the trickiest part of the whole design to crack, and it relies on one of these old black camera pieces. We used to kind of call them video camera pieces back in the day. I don't know the official name of it, but it gives you the exact right position of the studs to be able to do that, and then relying on some of the newer pieces like the inverted sloped piece in here to just connect that in underneath, and it all works out really well. Then we have a little bit of detailing in here with the suggestion of some grates or some greebles on the top with that plate piece right there. And then there's this inverted jumper piece that's attached back here to represent these kind of three fins that come down on the inside of those wings. And then the wings are obviously the big dominant feature of that, and I think having the angle kind of come up this way is probably just a little too steep of an angle. It should probably be just a little bit less than that, but there isn't really anything that exists in between, so I'll just have to go with the 6 wide base. But I think it works out okay. You definitely know when you're looking at it what it's supposed to be, so I'm okay with that. And then we just have the little kind of almost bat-like claws at the top. I just love that this whole thing is very just Dracula-esque. It's just like, Kylo Ren's personality is so, he's just this guy that's shrouded in darkness and trying to stay that way and trying to keep himself in the dark, and just the idea of like he's a vampire is a cool idea. So yeah, I like that about it. And the engines back here are very simply done with just a couple of these round bricks, nothing fancy to that. And the rest of it just pretty much is what you see is what you get. It's not super complicated, but I think it turned out really great. It's such an iconic vehicle, and I knew that this was going to be one that I had to get right pretty early on, and that's why it was in the intro, because it's one of those things that I completed as soon as the movie came out. I went to work trying to figure out how to represent it. So, oh yeah, another last thing to mention is the little minifig hands again acting as the guns on the side there. I think this is a really worthy successor to the Lambda class shuttle that Vader had. Again, nice kind of contrast with the try-hard here, Kylo Ren with his super black, very menacing looking shuttle, and Vader rolling around in his white, elegant, comfortable shuttle, because everybody knew Vader was trouble. They didn't need to be told. They just knew it. So yeah, there's a lot of good visual storytelling in this, and I really enjoy that. So there that is. All right, guys, so there is the collection from The Force Awakens. Man, what a movie, and what a fantastic kickoff to what was going to be the new Star Wars. And I think the fact that it's as good of a movie as it is an absolute miracle. And they really should be commended for the job that the whole team did on revitalizing Star Wars in a way that I think no one really thought was possible. So kudos. And yeah, seeing the range of new but familiar ships here is definitely it definitely shows you that they were trying to push the envelope while still staying true to what made the originals great, and that kind of tug of war is very evident here. But I think that they struck a really good balance with this movie, and yeah, I think even in The Last Jedi we see that get pushed even a little further, and there's some really incredible designs in The Last Jedi, so I'm excited to show those to you guys next. So if you guys enjoy the video, as usual, I would really appreciate the like. Leave me a comment to let me know what you think of the ships. If there's any that I missed that you really wanted to see, let me know, and I will for sure try to cover those in a future video. Now that we're getting close to wrapping up the whole kind of Skywalker saga with these collection videos, I'm going to be doing a series of one-offs of things that I've built along the way that didn't make it into the video at the time. There's a couple of really cool, fun designs that are on the way for that, so stay tuned for that. You know, episode 9 will not be the end of the Fleet series, far from it. There's always going to be new Star Wars stuff to cover. So yeah, thank you guys again so much for watching. I'm going to get to work on the next video, and may the Force be with you.